bunch of nerds sit and ramble about video games.
That's a good sound.
There's your sound test.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. I love doing those early recordings and you guys have no idea that we're actually starting.
Those recordings where you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I love those moments. Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Thankfully, this show will still go on.
Yeah.
You getting comfortable there?
Yeah, I'm just moving my chanclas out of the way.
Chanclas.
My chanclitas.
My chanclas.
My chanclitis.
That sounds bad.
That sounds like an actual thing.
A disease. You should get that checked out. Welcome to Banjo-Kazooie. We're going to just kind of talk about everything, like, in general, I suppose. Not that that's much for us to go off of in particular. Us specifically, because...
I barely have anything.
Well, no, I mean, okay, here's the thing. I've only ever beaten the first game. And I'm currently trying to beat Tui, which is, I just haven't picked it up in, like, about a good year or two, I think. I am not going to touch nuts and bolts until I beat Tui, and we don't own either of the Game Boy games. And then there's Banjo and Smash Brothers. So we actually just got back from finishing up a couple matches with Banjo, so we can get re-familiar with how he controls in Smash Brothers. And Victor played as Sura or whatever. But we the night before, as we're recording this, we played a little bit of Kazooie and Tui again, just to get re-familiar, there it is again, with the games and such, because I haven't played Kazooie in quite a while. And again, I haven't picked up Tui in about a good, 2 or so years, I think.
And I never touched Tui until last night.
It was...
Oh boy. It was quite the session.
Okay.
I think I lost a bit of my brain cells when playing. Because I'm thinking back to when I was stuck in the fucking maze.
Yeah, the first person.
And I was like, I must have, the starting point, I must have just been like, okay. And then, it just slipped my mind that one area was also where you started.
Uh-huh.
Because then when I went back in there were those 2 other statues. And then that's when they had the signs. And when one of them was like, oh, if you find panels along the wall, you can press A and open that shit. And I didn't even fucking
Did
realize.
you have to talk to that? Did you have to go to that hint post first?
I don't know. I skipped it. That was the thing, because I didn't see those there.
Okay, but we, stood in front of those panels and pressed all the buttons and nothing worked.
I gave it to you. You pressed everything. Nothing fucking
I'm sure
happened.
I pressed A amongst those buttons.
I'm sure you did.
And nothing happened.
And that's where I was like, what the fuck even?
And there was this whole other corner off to the side you didn't go into, and that's where the other little statue heads were found to get that 20 and to go to the super...
It was in one of those fucking panels.
Yeah, the super ultra... What's it called?
The
Sacred Temple or whatever.
It was the slightly...
Sacred Temple.
Slightly Sacred Temple. Or something like that.
Did the mic pick up your stomach? It went bad.
I don't know. Probably.
I hope so.
You can make an edit or something.
No, it's fine.
Stomach.
Well, we were talking over it.
Well, whatever.
Okay. We should probably rewind a bit because that's already getting too far into Tui.
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie, the game,
is a fun game.
It's really, really fun. The thing that I like about it is it feels a lot to me like Spyro, like the early Spyro games. Also because Spyro 1 and Banjo-Kazooie came out in 98.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I did, on Destination Mark, I did a quick reviews on the first game. And I literally was not planning to 100% the game when I first went in blind. Because I was like, okay, it's just gonna fucking, probably be a really hard game to 100%. I'm not really gonna go for it. I didn't really know how the game worked at that point. The only bits I'd seen from it were, maybe some Game Grumps clips, or maybe, this or that, or... Is there a fucking jet going overhead?
Probably.
Or the like nuts and bolts video that John Tron made and all that stuff. So like there wasn't much from Banjo that I really got to. There wasn't much at all I experienced before playing it on Rare Replay. Because to this day I still don't own either Kazooie or Tooie on N64, and honestly I don't want to own the first game on N64 because I heard that every time you die, the nodes reset, and that's fucking aggravating, especially on worlds like Click Clock Wood or Rusty Bucket Bay. That shit gets tedious real fast, and I think Rusty Bucket Bay is just very like it's stress to 11 all the time, but I think I would prefer that over utter confusion. The utter confusion that is Click Clock Wood, because everything is spread across the 4 different seasonal variations of the exact same level. So you have to hit a switch in one season to open something in another, or to even unlock the ability to go into the other seasonal door. And it just gets, you have to remember where shit is and what can be accessed during what time of the year in that level, and it gets real fucking convoluted really fast.
That sounds like a very complex fucking TikTok clock, like from Mario 64.
Kind of.
Where it's like, I mean, at least with that, all you're doing in that is just, you're either speeding stuff up, making it like, making everything regular, or literally stopping everything in like in like their positions.
I mean, because I told Erin like today, I was like, that's a fucking, when she was streaming, I probably just dated the podcast this episode, but she was streaming Spyro, and I was like, yeah, so Tooie.
Did you see my comment?
Am I right? Yeah, I did. You were like, Tooie's fucking weird. but
all I literally did, I saw
the
you
one
saying, and then I just put, Metro 2 is weird. Bye.
And so, yeah, that was like the little tease to this episode. I kind of let it slip in that stream. But I was telling her, like, Click Clock Wood is basically a Banjo-Tooie level before Banjo-Tooie ever existed. And there was just a shit ton of carryovers that didn't make it into Kazooie that ended up in Tooie. So it's kind of like Mario Galaxy in that sense. It's like, but Tooie is just like Kazooie more. You know, but what was the original thing I was saying before this? That the N64 version of Banjo-Kazooie is like, I think, the most aggravating version, and I haven't played it for myself, but I don't think I want to, because I am a very impatient kind of person when it comes to losing shit and having to regain it back in games like that. So that doesn't sound like a very fun time for me. I am so glad that there are little tiny quality of life changes in the 360/Rare Replay version. But Banjo-Kazooie, okay, no, so what I was saying earlier, it feels a lot like Spyro in the sense that Banjo-Kazooie is a very basic kind of platformer. It's a great collectathon, and it does a good job at pacing out how to introduce the abilities to you. And how you use them. Some you're going to use a lot, others you might just use a couple of times. Like the one iffy ability in the first game is, and I'm forgetting the actual name of it, so I'm sorry about that for people who want to say it in the comments. You can go ahead and do it. I just don't remember off the top of my head at the moment. The one where you're flying as Kazooie and you can like do your speed dash attack.
Oh, that?
Yeah, it has a name. Every move has a name. I remember some of them, but not all of them.
Wouldn't it just be called like a dive or something?
No, it's not. No, it has a name for it.
Oh,
but like, you don't have to use that ability a lot. The game doesn't start going, okay, use it fucking everywhere, and also it's very tedious, and there's no reticle to tell you where you're gonna hit when you dash. If you're in a wide enough area and you want to get to another location, another part of the level, the world quickly, you can use it to zip across, and it's fine for that. But actually using it to run into stuff, like to push buttons and stuff, or to activate targets, you only have to do it, first off, in 2 worlds, and not even that much. They only require you to do it for the buttons on the snowman in Freeze Peak, because that's where you first get the ability. You have to kill a snowman that way as well if you want the extra goodies that they have that they're sitting on, or to get a Jiggy. There's a Jiggy for killing all of them, and then but that's a totally optional one, I'm sure. And then in Gobi's Valley, there's that target to get into one of the pyramids. So you have to do that one for the most part, but like you just have to hit that one target. And then you're pretty much done with that ability in that world. So that's pretty cool. But like, point being though, it's very simplistic. It's straightforward. There's not a whole lot of like doing crazy challenges. I mean, there are challenges in there, but they're not very tough. They're very easy to grasp. The AI can get kind of like
fucky.
Sort of. I mean, sometimes it's like way too good because like Mr. Vile can be really quick and very accurate. And Grunty's fight, most projectiles when something's targeting you and shooting at you, they're very precise, especially the snowmen.
Yes.
And you know this if you watched our playthrough on this channel with Chase, because it led to that epic ass moment where he got sniped from off screen by a snowman who threw a snowball. You can't even see him.
You can't even
at no
really
point
hear him.
You can hear him in the video, but we couldn't hear him because of the TV.
Yeah.
But even that being said, you can't see him at any point on the screen. We were just in his general vicinity. So the game just checks that you're in their vicinity, not that it's on screen, because I don't know the actual like game dev term, but there is a term for things and enemies and stuff that activates when it's on screen. But I think what he has is, I'm just going to call it this, like a more global trigger. So it just kind of happens when it happens, not when it's on screen. Because there are global cycles when enemies have global cycles or whatever. People say that for like Crash and stuff, where like they're enemies, whether they're like, I guess, on screen or activated way off to the side or wherever, or not, they're always on this like path or something, or they always have, so something about them is always functional or running as the game is running.
Yeah, because it's the same way with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Whereas we're in like 2 or so levels, because I saw Spike do a speedrun of it, because he explained on how there were 2 or so levels that run on a global cycle and stuff like that. And so it's basically, from what I remember, that term is basically like things are loaded in and have a set path the moment you start, the moment you're in the level.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
So it's like the moment you're loaded in, then it's like, okay, now here's like
whether they're on screen or not, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that the snowmen have that, but in order for them to see you and go, okay, let me throw a snowball at you, which is kind of unfair because it leads to
because they'll just start throwing even just when they're not on screen.
That's what I'm saying.
Because if you have the audio up, you'll have to hear them and literally just try and figure out where to dodge before they even throw the snowball.
Even though that moment where Chase got snapped was really funny, it was unfair. It was straight up unfair. Like, we couldn't hear him because of the TV. We're recording for fucking YouTube, and we couldn't see him at all. So, like, how are we to know?
Because I've had that happen when we played last night.
The funny thing, too, about that moment, I was starting to say you can hear it, because I was starting to say, like, I like how... And then I stopped because that's when it happened and we started laughing. I was going to say... This is just an aside, but I was saying, like... I was going to say, I like how the health scatters away from you, so you have to work for collecting the individual pieces. Because when he slammed into the... Chase jumped up onto the pedestal where the hive was, and then used Banjo's, like punch attack to break it, but then the pieces scattered, so he had to go and pick them up. And I thought it was really funny that they didn't go into him automatically, because if they did, I'm pretty sure that would have saved him from dying to the snowman. It would have still been funny to watch him get hit by the snowman, but I don't think he would have died from it.
Yeah, I believe all it is, don't all enemies just take, or at the very least,
no, some can take more than one, or about 2 or 3.
Let's say, because I know, don't the vast majority of some enemies just take 1?
Smaller enemies take 1. I think bigger enemies might take a couple more, but not much at all. Not a whole lot.
That would make sense, yeah.
But, because I'm sure there's like a honeycomb pieceless run where like you don't...
Oh, probably.
Like the heart container run or whatever, where you don't... You
just don't pick up heart containers.
Yeah. So you don't have to pick up the honeycomb pieces.
Jeez. Just thinking about it is like, how? Like, how would you fucking have the
You have to be really good.
Inner patience to fucking do stuff like that. Because that's where it's like... Because, speedrunners always explain how, like, they've had their practice of doing that for however long, and it's like... It's amazing. It's amazing, because then when you see it in action, it's like...
I guess it's just, you find out it's something you can do, and then it just comes down to, do I want to challenge myself to see if it's even possible to beat the game like this?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, because what was that thing, that Nuzlocke thing, where all I was saying was like, oh, maybe I should do Spyro, like a Spyro stream on Destination Mark, and try to play the whole game, all of Spyro 1 without Sparks. And then everyone was like, oh, like a Nuzlocke? And I'm like, oh, this is an original idea? Oh, shit, all right. And I had no idea what it was. But, like, even whether it's something people are already doing or not, like, I think it's interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. And that's where it's more, like, watching those kind of speedrunners is, like, entertaining. Because even if like, they themselves don't say much or whatever, seeing them do crazy shit is still entertaining, because it's like, how the fuck?
I need to show you the Banjo one, because
I want to see a Banjo one, because
there's a really good one on GDQ. It was done a few years back. I don't know how many more people have run it since then. I'm pretty sure it has to have been run since then. I just don't know by who and for how many times more in the years afterward. But there's a good one that I'll try and remember to show you after we finish this off. It's a good one. It's really entertaining. But yeah, no, again, going back to what makes Banjo 1 so good, like, it's straightforward. The controls are really good. Everything about it is super solid. This isn't a review. This is just, these are things that I was looking for, especially because knowing it was an N64 game originally, I was like, I'm not expecting it to control the best. I mean, I still think when it comes to, I try really hard. I want to think that I try really hard. People will probably disagree with me on this. I'm sure of it. That I try to not do console wars too much. It took me a while to get into the Xbox stuff, ironically, because we played this on Xbox. But like, eventually I did buy myself an Xbox One, and then Wes bought me an original Xbox as a, like, it was supposed to be a joke gift, but I was like, well, joke's on you. I wanted to try and get some like good original exclusive games for the original Xbox, and now that you've bought this for me, I can do that now. And then when Chase wanted to give away his 360, I bought it off him. So I have all three of them now, and then there's also the Series X, but I don't see a reason right now to even attempt to try and buy one. That's neither here nor there. I think when it comes to PS1 versus N64, if I had to say, and not to be biased because I grew up with PS1, which one was quote-unquote superior, or even which one I preferred, I definitely prefer the PS1. Not only are there more classics than just Crash or Spyro, I can list off many other games I fell in love with as a kid and played from way back in the day, but I think PS1 games just look better, and some of them do play better and sound better even. Not all of them, but a good chunk of what I played from my childhood versus what other people who are Nintendo hardcore people always say with their childhood. Like, I still think that the ones I grew up with, like, really stand out even today. And even though Nintendo still comes out and goes, okay, well, here's Mario 64 for the billionth time, here's Ocarina of Time for the billionth time, like, because they know that those games did so well and all of that, that's fine. I like the fact that a lot of my childhood stuff got remastered, so like that's cool to see that there was at least an evolution. You know, it was enough to warrant an evolution. But that said, like, I was not expecting, because Mario 64 was really weird when I first played it. So I was like, it's one of the first 3D platformers of its time, but like, I don't think it controls very well or this or that. And I kind of liked Mario 64 at first, and then I kind of fell off it later because I was like, it just doesn't really hold up anymore. And I'm not really into it as I was before. It's one of the mainline Mario games. So I'm just like, oh, fucking, I'm not into it. It's not my cup of tea. I prefer Sunshine onward. But then Banjo comes along, and I'm like, okay, well, this feels a lot like Mario 64 in the sense of like having your hub world, going to the different worlds, collecting shit, coming back. But does it feel better? And does it play better? And it does. But I can only really say that because I played the Xbox version. I suppose I would have to play either Kazooie or Tooie on N64 to see if it actually does feel good on the N64. But because it didn't need to be... I don't think it had a whole lot of tweaking when it was brought over to Xbox, at least in the control department, because Banjo feels great to control in both games. I don't know. I suppose I'd have to procure a copy and find out. But
that's gonna be fun.
I'm glad that it does feel good to play, and when a game feels good to control, and I'm having fun with it, and I'm engaged, and I've realized, oh shit, I've already made such and such, like this much progress, and it's barely my first PlayStation. Once that happens, I'm like, I'm in it for the long haul for the most part. So I saw Banjo-Kazooie through to the end, and it was a fun time. Tooie got kind of weird for me because, as I like to put it, I don't hate the game. I think it's inferior to the original. And that's my opinion. Some people might agree. A lot are probably going to disagree. But I think that everything Banjo-Kazooie established, I know Tooie tried to evolve it, but it felt like that good old classic case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they tried to fix it. And they just... I think what they were trying to do was subvert expectations. Like, oh, this thing is back. It must work the way it did in the original. Then it super totally doesn't. But that just makes it feel kind of trollish and unfair. And it's not... Yeah, it subverts your expectations, but not in the good way. So that can stretch to a lot of mechanics that you firsthand experienced.
Yes.
Literally the night before we recorded this.
Plus, you were explaining to me all the differences and all the other stuff.
And then you were seeing them.
And I saw all of that firsthand. I was like, yeah. Like, man, where do I even begin?
So, like, we did Freeze Easy Peak and we did Gobi's Valley because we played Kazooie
Yes.
first, so you could get reacclimated with Banjo.
Yeah, that was so I could get back into the feel of how Banjo was, because I hadn't played since I did fucking, what was the level, not Treasure Trove, it was the Swamp.
Bubble Gloop Swamp.
Yes.
And then I found out you didn't do Clanker, so I just went ahead and did Clanker for you.
Yeah, and then after I got used to that, then we switched over to Tooie, and then you're like, okay.
We started a fresh save, yeah.
Yeah, because we were playing on my profile.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you were explaining to me what was different, and you were explaining to me stuff as it kind of happened. And of everything that I have played, of what I've seen, witnessed, and have played.
Because we got to Glitter Gulch Mine, and you also unlocked Witchy World, but you haven't gone in there yet.
I haven't gone in there yet. Because I had just barely fucking did everything in
Miam Temple.
And I think that the most bullshit thing about Tooie so far...
I'm just going to move the mic.
...is the health. At the very least, the health with the blue exclamation. I don't... Okay. Why would you make something... If you have health, right? Or at the very least, if you have full health, and you see this thing, and you pick it up, and then you don't know what it is, and you have that shit at like 1 or 2, and you have that much health, why would you make that a thing? And again, you were explaining to me on how you could use it in a pinch to get back to full health. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're defeating enemies and getting that however many honeycombs anyways. So why the fuck would you want to pick that up to get full health?
Because here's the thing, too. Well, I think they try to balance it. And I also, Aaron told me about this, too, which I'll explain in a minute. I think it was to balance out the fact that every enemy would drop something, I mean, a honeycomb piece, in Kazooie. they're not always guaranteed to drop anything for you in Tui. Sometimes they will, and a good chunk of the time too they won't. So I think if you are in fact if you're not near any hives and you've already tried to kill some enemies and some haven't dropped enough health for you, but then you end up by chance finding this fucking one, then you do have a chance. What I told you was that it was one type of weird honeycomb with the exclamation mark that may sometimes flip between going up in sequential order and then sometimes randomizing the order, and you have to just stop it like a fucking roulette. What Aaron told me is I think there's actually two of them. It's one that's an exclamation that does the sequential, and the one with a red question mark that does it random. Because the question mark's like, where is it gonna fucking land? Like, I think that's what it was. And I can't remember if that's the case, because we've only ever come across so far
the blue one.
So
because fucking it was so when you told me that,
I told it to you and you hadn't seen it yet, and you were like, what the fuck?
Because I picked it up from an enemy before I even did the temple. Before I went inside there, because I killed an enemy and then I didn't even see it on the thing because it was on the side, and I got it and that popped up, and I didn't know what I was like. What the fuck is this? And
also, it just breaks the gameplay. It stops everything so you can do this and play with your life, literally.
Yeah, and it's like, why would you want to do that? Why would you make that a thing? That's stupid. It's like it's so it's very much like, why the fuck would I want this? Like why? I like even if it's using a pinch or whatever, why? It's like it like it's like you said, it breaks the fucking flow of the game because you're stopping literally everything to decide, okay, do you want 1 health and potentially die, or do you want full health? And it's like,
because the ones we've been seeing now, at least Rare was nice enough to program these things in such a way that, because I want to say that in late game, if you do pick those up, the way they move goes faster. But I want to say, because I can't remember, but the ones that we were picking up in early game go slow. So at least you do have control to be like, okay, give me full health. Just don't pick them up when you're at full health already, because there's really no point. The cool thing, too, is that they still act, and Kazooie did this, too. They act the way they do in Kazooie, and if you get health from somebody, from an enemy or a hive, and you don't pick it up, it'll stay there. That's the cool thing, because... And Tui does alleviate a lot of issues that Kazooie had. Not that Kazooie had a whole lot, but stuff like the camera snapping on shit when you're trying to move it a certain angle.
Yes, it did fix that. And then
the way the camera hugs the wall but then snaps in a weird way, or
turning under the water.
Turning underwater or flying. If you hold either L or R as you're turning, then you can make sharper turns, and the game never tells you can do that. That's something I found out randomly by myself. But in Tui, they fixed the camera, and those sharp turns are implemented automatically. And so
because I noticed that when I was swimming underwater
they're faster, tighter turns.
Yeah.
The
only part that really kind of confuzzled me was moving up and down under the water, because up is up and down is down. And I can't really control like that.
Wait, in Tui up is up and down is down? That's not the case in Kazooie. That's
I mean, unless you can unless you can invert the controls.
Maybe.
We didn't check that. I didn't check it, but I was just saying, like, that was the only other weird part for me. But I mean, yeah, doing sharper turns is automatic, because it was both for flying and for underwater. Because I saw all that in the first world. But with the health thing, it's like you didn't need those.
It's not just the health too. The thing is that, like I said, it feels like a lot of these mechanics that Rare introduced in Kazooie were toyed with in Tui, but toyed with in a more trollish sense. I don't know if they were meant to feel trollish, but that's how they feel. Remember how you used to just step on a pad and then press R and give all your jiggies to the painting, and then you can unlock a world? Now you got to pay up your jiggies to King Jiggy Wiggy or whatever, and then you have to go to that little panel and play a stupid puzzle game.
And it doesn't even help with the fact that
you're timed.
It's a literal puzzle game. It's
an animated puzzle.
You're
watching a scene play out.
It's a preview of whatever level you're unlocking.
Yeah.
And you're timed.
They start off easy enough because, of course.
Well, yes.
But then in late game, you have like 40 seconds to put like 15 pieces in place. It's not very fun, and it's stressful. And also, they introduced Minjos, which are like anti-Jinjos, and
I like calling it fake Jinjos because that's basically what they are.
They can hurt you. They can run into you. Oh, now Miharu told me, okay, the way to check for that is shoot eggs at them from a distance. If you hit them and they tumble over, they're a Minjo. If it just goes right through them, they're a Jinjo. Because otherwise, you can't tell the difference. They act, look, and behave up until you approach them the exact same way as Jinjos. Mm-hmm. And it's not like their voices are lower pitched or whatever or anything like that, or the colors are a bit saturated.
It's literally like if you don't know that Minjos existed in Tui, then you would learn the hard way of what a Minjo is and what they do. And it's literally just like that. Like you wouldn't know unless you unknowingly approached it.
And the evil
it's like that fucking JoJo meme of like, oh, you're approaching me. It's like literally like that.
And the evil hives. There are hives.
I didn't even see any of those yet, but I'm dreading those because it's like I don't fucking.
They're fast and they just go after you like Minjos do. You still get health from them, but it's like, okay, fight or flight, and it's like. Mind you, there was something somewhat similar to that in Kazooie where they introduced hives that had bees surrounding them.
Yeah, but even then it was like you could destroy the hives and only the bees would just chase after you a certain distance.
Sure, and then you could even skip. I would usually skip those hives, and usually I'm good on health anyway, and I can just go and kill enemies because, again, every enemy drops something in Kazooie, and I don't know, it just feels... It feels trollish. Maybe it's not for a lot of other people, but I don't see why they had to do that.
I don't like how you were saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they try to I feel like it's more of they wanted to introduce new stuff to Tui to not make it feel like Kazooie but done differently or whatever. Like they changed stuff or whatever. Because it's like because if you think of like bringing stuff from Kazooie over, but then maybe changing a few things or adding a lot of new things, it's like maybe they have felt that like some of the stuff that you could do in Kazooie just wasn't enough for the newer stuff or whatever.
Okay, but think about it this way: it's like, what if in Spyro 1, all fodder was there for you to kill for health and everything was cool, but then in 2 they introduce fodder that are evil and can attack you, like
and are part of the group.
Yeah, and it's like that's kind of what Tui does, and it's like that's not fair. It felt unnecessary, is what I'm saying.
It feels extremely unnecessary.
It seems like they felt the need to tweak literally everything that they introduced in Kazooie. Mm-hmm. Like, literally everything, every aspect. The cool things that they tweaked and expanded on were the movesets. Because we didn't get to a whole lot of them just yet, but you can obviously, split up Banjo and Kazooie and play as them individually. Miharu loves that. You've got new moves that expand on the moves that because you start the game with everything you already got from Kazooie, which is awesome. I love when sequels do that. And then with certain moves that you retain, they expand on them. So you've got the your like ground pound move. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm sorry, but I think it's the Bill Drill, which is the enhanced move that you learn in Tui, where you can do the ground pound, but if you hold the button, Kazooie will drill.
Yeah, that's the Bill Drill.
And you can drill into rocks and stuff and, do stuff like that. So stuff like that is cool. The transformations are a little weird as well. Like, they're not all. The first one's cool because you're just a little stone dude. You can play games with the guys.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was cool. Glitter Gulch Mine, you're a stick of dynamite. You're actually a detonator.
Yeah, you're actually just a detonator.
And you can kill yourself.
You can hurt yourself.
Because it's context sensitive. You have to go find something to blow up, and then a cutscene will play when you detonate yourself to blow up the thing that's blocking a path or doing whatever. If you just use it on enemies or just because you want to use it, you'll blow yourself up, and then you will kill yourself.
Yeah, you will literally hurt yourself.
You'll start losing health. And it's like, I don't understand, but okay. Because it was cool how I think only one transformation is not like an animal in Kazooie, which is the pumpkin from Man Monster Mansion. But then like every transformation in Tooie is like not an animal.
Yeah.
As far as I can remember, because I'm trying to remember, like the T-Rex. Okay. So my bad. There's the T-Rex or the dinosaur. I don't know if it's actually a T-Rex. It might be, but like you're fucking huge and all that. So that's hilarious. There's also the dragon for Kazooie, but that's not necessarily like. It's like an extra thing you can do.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I hope the mic caught that.
It probably definitely caught that. Yeah, because from my knowledge of Tooie, I know certain things. I didn't know about like the health thing, or I didn't know about the. Well, I kind of knew about the Minjos, but I didn't know about the fake hives.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of stuff I don't necessarily even know that you can do or not. But that was my extensive knowledge of Tooie, other than what I played last night. Because I knew really everything of Kazooie, because I've seen you play, and then I've seen like basically everything that Kazooie has. Hi, Cat.
Cat has joined the party.
Cat has joined the chat. But yeah. Just by playing the first world of Tooie, after playing Kazooie, there were things that they really should not have tried to fix or tweak or whatever. Because like you said, if it just feels super unnecessary, especially when it worked so well. It's like if it worked the first time and everyone liked it, why change it and make it weird?
Because again, I know what they were trying to go for. They were trying to evolve certain things, which is completely fine. Because
there were things that were changed for the better, like the tighter turns and the extensive moveset and stuff like that. That's fine.
That stuff's fine. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It was all of like the
mechanical stuff, other things.
It's all like that everything else that makes that makes exploring the worlds fun. That made it weird. It was like, why'd you have to do this? I even told you from last night, I was like, after you told me about the health thing, I was like, I feel like I'm gonna be asking a lot of why with certain mechanics and certain things, because it was so weird, and especially how you described them to me. It was like, why would you want to change it like this if it's an unnecessary thing, or like,
I mean, there's also, I think, the argument that maybe they wanted Tooie to be a little bit tougher than Kazooie.
Like challenging.
And I understand that, but then that comes into like faux difficulty, which I've talked about on many occasions, where it's like, when you talk about, we're not going to hold on this topic for a while because I tend to do that, but with like Skylanders or something, or even Crash 4, because I've mentioned it before in Crash 4, for Toys for Bob, they think like, okay, difficulty, end game, okay, just start setting out fucking enemies and all these hazards you have to avoid. More means difficult, more means hard. So more enemies come at you at once and ambush you. They'll do more damage, they'll take more hits to kill, more. That doesn't always mean difficult. That can mean unfair, unbalanced, bullshit, like it can get very gross very fast, and
it would make what could be considered fun unfun.
Yes, because you have to build up to that. You can't just be like, okay, end game, throw all the shit at you. Rayman and Shantae do really good at kind of like building up, like, okay, here are the mechanics, by endgame, here are some gauntlets, but you already know how this shit works. So now it's just raw skill between you and getting to the end goal. And that's fine.
And even at some points, they try to mess with you of like what you would know.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like
it's allowed.
You kind of have to think on your feet, or at the very least, like you have to like really be on alert of what's going on, and then be like, okay, so this is happening. All right, then I have to do this. Yeah. And you go through and you do it, and you're like, okay, now I know how to do that.
So I think for Rare, it was like, in this situation, it was like, just tweak everything. So like this shouldn't work the way it did last time. This might work a little bit different the way it did last time. This was different from last time. This, and they just went down like the checklist and was like, okay, they were like, this has to change to do this now. This has to be like this. And some of them were okay. The expansions were okay on, the bigger worlds I'm okay with. I just don't like how much backtracking there is. And again, Miharu loves backtracking because this game made her love it. And the reason why I don't care much for it, even though there are ward pads so you can get around faster, stuff like that, that's fine. The thing I do like are the interconnected shortcuts, because if you have to get to
it's a very convenient thing, especially when you have to get somewhere that you need to get and you're like super far away from it.
You cut out the middleman of having to go back to the Isle of Hags and then go into Jamjar's fucking thing and then go to where you have to go. It just cuts out the middleman. If you have to know this like fucking tunnel system of shortcuts. That's the one thing you would have to know and learn as you play. But then when you start learning it, I can see people loving that aspect about it. What I don't like is that they are so big and things are now collectibles are clustered now.
I was going to mention that too, because I was going to say I like the bigger worlds. I just wish that the items weren't clustered so that way you could explore the bigger places. Because imagine if Kazooie did that, where everything was clustered and you have to go and find the shit, and like the world and like the levels were like bigger. It would be unfun, because it's like
they don't necessarily act as indicators anymore as to places you haven't been yet or something. You just have to, for the most part, most worlds when you when you first enter them are like kind of quote unquote empty. Like you'll see some NPCs, you'll see some enemies, you'll see places to go, and when you get there, you'll start finding collectibles, but they're not out there in the open for you to. They don't act as trails and pathways for you to start going. Because like Crash, you got your Wumpa Fruit that sometimes leads you down pathways. Spyro gems lead you down pathways. Mario coins lead you down pathways. Banjo-Kazooie notes will lead you down pathways. So if you're like, oh, I haven't been somewhere yet, I know I haven't because I'm missing a crap ton of notes. Where are they? You'll find maybe a trail that you left off and forgot to come back to. In Tui,
that's what happened with me in the swamp. There were notes that I was missing somewhere and I didn't realize. And you were like, oh, did you go to the egg? And I was like, I don't know.
That big egg, yeah.
You went over and there were the rest of the notes. And I was like, oh, okay, there they were. Because they were there, and I was like, okay, well, I checked everywhere that I know I've been.
Now, imagine that problem, but in every world all the time, and that's Tui. Yeah, because they're in clusters, just hidden in places.
I noticed that when I was going around, because I was like, because as I was going to from place to place to find Jiggies, I was like, okay, this is a big area. It might not look so big when you're at the high point, when you get that one Jiggy that's at the top of the temple.
Yeah.
And then you look down and you see everything. It might not look as big, but when you're navigating and stuff, it feels empty.
Big. No, but yeah, exactly.
It feels empty. Like how you're saying, you'll see enemies around, and then
they'll act as hazards.
NPCs
they'll shoot you or chase you or something.
Yeah, like the stone guys. Yeah. But other than that, the levels felt so like going around the areas felt so big to where it's like you could have expanded a little bit on that, or at the very least been like you could have done it differently to where it's like it doesn't feel too open,
because they're trying to make you work harder to find where you have to go next or what you have to do next. Things were everywhere for you to find and go and do in Kazooie. Case in point, exactly, Bubble Gloop Swamp. You first get there, and you kind of go over that little arch, and then you're in like the central little area of the level, and then turn the camera left, there's where the egg and the things are. Turn to the center, there's the big crocodile. Go a little bit further to the right, move the camera to the right, there's the fucking part where you have to the huts and you have to go up, and then move a little bit more and there's the turtle. Like, there's so much you can already see that you have to do. In that part where you're at right there, there's the whole system of the logs and stuff where you can go and do all that business. You can pretty much see, not every world's like that, of course, but for most of them, you can kind of see where everything generally, things you can go and do right out the gate. 2E's not like that. You have to go and find Mumbo, control a thing, blow up a hidden entrance, then you can go back in as Banjo and Kazooie and then do things. Or then bring Mumbo back in because then you have to go do a spell or something. And it's just, 2E feels like a chore kind of game where it's just checking off things off a checklist.
Definitely,
and remembering where to go and what to do. And that's where it kind of starts to not feel as fun.
Yeah, it feels like it's too much work.
And the clusters, I wanted to say this earlier, the clusters, while convenient for collecting, are not convenient for navigating. Because it doesn't feel like the first game. And the clusters are more convenient for collecting, like I was saying, because like they're worth 5, and you can find treble clefs worth 20. So you can get your note stuff done like that. Feathers and eggs are in nests now, and you have to wait for them to phase through the different versions to collect whichever one you need.
That's one other thing I wanted to mention. Why would you want to wait for the specific feather or egg that you want when you could have just divided that shit up?
Because that's how it was in Kazooie.
I was thinking, literally, last night before I fell asleep, I was thinking about this argument, and I'm like, and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, what could have been done different that would have still been fun to collect and do or whatever?
Make it like Kazooie.
But, you know,
make it like Kazooie.
and it's like, and I'm thinking, I'm like, well, you could just separate the shit or make it to where it's like, okay, in this level you'll need these things or whatever. I was thinking because
they even toy with the idea of it, like in fucking, okay, actually no, I was gonna say Freeze Easy because of the scarf, because red and yellow, so you got the red feathers. I was gonna say the gold feathers, but it's actually the notes. But sometimes they'll put them in patterns, so and you know what they do, so that it's not gonna confuse you. Like, okay, I'm picking up red and gold feathers at the same time.
Yeah, especially,
but I know how they work and what they do.
Especially if you know, like if you know what they do, then you know.
And those will always respawn, I think. So like you're good on those. Notes for the Xbox version will stay when you collect them, but like, it was just made so much more convenient and so much more fun to be like, look at all this stuff I'm gathering as I'm going along.
Yeah,
but in 2E, you have to go and find out where they are because they're all fucking hidden in crevices and other hard-to-reach places and shit. And it can get kind of weird. I have a theory as to why 2E is the way it is. Like, well, an in-universe theory. It's because, I mean, the plot's kind of dark. I mean, Grunty comes back, she's a skeleton, she fucking kills Bottles. Straight up. And, so it's kind of revenge for your friend, and it's also just to stop Grunty from actually reviving to her original self and all that nonsense. But, like, right out the gate, Sparrow Mountain's different. Because they attacked, the sisters, the two other sisters come and attack and raise hell on Sparrow Mountain. So that already kind of looks different from like the bright and cheery version you first come to in Kazooie. But the slower version of the song, the fact that even Banjo's grunts and yippies are a little bit different because they re-recorded them. Things are a little bit more... some things are a bit streamlined, like the jiggies are faster. You don't have to stand there and do a whole little yippee, I did it kind of animation. Health sounds a little bit different too. So things are a bit quicker. The atmosphere is a little bit darker. It's definitely... 2E was definitely meant, even though people like Miharu can still play it and have played it first, 2E was meant for people who already played Kazooie, for the most part. Because you should already be familiar with how everything works in Kazooie. All your moves are retained story and universe-wise from Kazooie. I think it was meant to throw you off in that sense too, because in Banjo-Kazooie everything's cheerful and happy and stuff. but in universe, it's a little bit darker in 2E. So just by a touch, so it's meant to kind of discombobulate you a little bit, as it does the characters in the story. So that subversion of expectation it makes sense, quote unquote, in that regard. But from a design perspective, it's weird. We take issue with a couple of those things. Again, the game does not suck, and we don't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not sitting in a review or anything. We will get to other stuff about Banjo in a minute. I'm just saying, like, 2E is a bit weird for us.
Yeah, it's just the fact that there were certain things about 2E that could have or shouldn't have been changed or altered or tweaked or whatever. Cause the story, the graphics too, because my god. But
they do look a lot better.
The story, the actual plot of it, and navigating and doing all that stuff is still fun. It was just a lot of the stuff of collecting and doing stuff is where it's iffy. It's where it's it's weird to do now because that's not how it was in.
Because I think I think they wanted to kind of convey this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness in the beginning of 2E, because a lot of the worlds are a bit darker. You're going to more factories and you're going down these deep dark mines and doing stuff like that and going through these big temples, and that's not really what you did in Banjo-Kazooie.
Mm-hmm.
But also, let's put this into perspective. What do you do when you first enter Spiral Mountain in Banjo-Kazooie? You look around, see what you can do, and you can do everything right there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see?
I happen to not do that on my save.
What do you see when you first enter Spiral Mountain in 2E? A rock you can't interact with. You go under water where the waterfall was. A Kazooie door you can't interact with.
Mm-hmm.
They start putting these things in there. Out the gate, there's a lot of stuff you can't interact with. Mm-hmm. So that kind of brings in the whole aspect of there's backtracking involved. There's stuff you can't do yet.
Especially with the fact that now Grunty's Lair is only really used to bring pages to Cheeto.
Yeah. But
stuff like that.
Then look at Mumbo's Mountain versus Miam Temple. Mumbo's Mountain, it's not a big level. It's the first level or world or whatever of the game.
It's a very compact level.
You can go into first person.
Very much close together, but
you can go into first person and see a lot of stuff that you can do. And Mumbo's Mountain is a fantastic fucking first level for the Banjo series,
because it's basically your introductory level of here's enemies that you can kill, and there's these things.
Here's enemies you can't kill, enemies you can stun, like the bull. Enemies you can kill, transformations, secrets, like crevices and stuff, like with a honeycomb, stuff like that. Thinking outside the box, getting on top of the totem guys to get the other honeycomb.
The witch switches.
The witch switches. Helping little NPCs, and they can help you in return.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff is really cool. Miam Temple, it's huge. You can't see everything at once. Mm-hmm. There's barely anything to collect or grab right out the gate. Mm-hmm. There's a honeycomb piece right next to you near the entrance that you cannot grab. It immediately throws you into the sense of, I can kind of see things. Well, actually, no, it's the opposite. Banjo-Kazooie is I can see everything for the most part. I can tell where I can kind of go. The game's not telling me where to go, but it's giving me stuff to do.
Yeah, because how you're saying too, that Kazooie, when there are certain things, where there's certain paths that you probably haven't taken yet, there are things you can see that you can be okay, you can use it as a landmark of, I haven't been in this area yet. I'll go there later and look for this thing, so that way I can go and explore there later. And in 2E, there's barely any landmarks to be okay, I haven't been there yet. Because when you navigate around, navigating around in big ass empty areas feels okay, I feel like I've been everywhere, but I know for a fact I haven't.
And I told you that.
But it feels like I've been everywhere.
I told you that exact thing. Because you were I don't know where the fuck else I can go. And I was I looked at you and I said, I know two things off the top of my head you have not done yet. So you are not done yet.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, then...
And it's hard to tell what you can and can't do because there's only so much you can do until you have to come back because there's an ability you don't have yet.
Yeah, like, I had a...
And it's like, how far even into the game are you going to get that ability to be able to even come back? So, like, it's a lot. Like I was saying, okay, just to sum up that bit and fucking end our TUI criticisms. Banjo-Kazooie kind of gives you this feeling, that was my theory, of like, you're hopeful in Banjo-Kazooie, you're kind of hopeless in TUI, in the terms of the feeling that it gives you as the player, because when you enter Kazooie, you're like, look at this bright, colorful world. Look at these things I can grab right away. It's leading me over here. I can do stuff over here. I can do these. I can see that guy. I can go talk to this person. TUI goes, I can't see the whole world, and there are things I can see that I can't grab yet. Mm-hmm. This is a different experience. And as we've just discussed for the last fucking almost hour, a lot of it's for the better, and there is a ton of it that we're like, I don't want to come out and say for the worse, but like, it does kind of sour the experience a little bit.
And again, it's souring because we didn't do that.
And Banjo 1 did not do that.
And also because there were certain things that it felt very unnecessary to change or do.
To tweak, yeah.
And all that. Because again, the sequel isn't bad. It's not a bad game. There's nothing about it that sucks. Like as a whole, it's all just certain aspects of it. It's very much like how we were like, why make it clustered? Why make the collectibles clustered together? Or why do this thing? Or why do that?
I was gonna say, and the funny thing is that, which one did I play first? Was it? I didn't play TUI. I'm trying to remember, because Yooka-Laylee kind of also gave me those feelings, and I'm pretty sure that's why we haven't even beaten it yet. We played that for the channel too. I don't know if people even remember that. We did try Yooka-Laylee when it was like brand new, and we were, I think, blind to it, and we played only like we only recorded 5 parts. That was our one and only session of Yooka-Laylee. And we played Impossible Layer. We played it on Destination Mark. We streamed it. And it's okay because it's a completely different kind of game. But Yooka-Laylee, in terms of trying to bring that banjo feel back, it feels more like TUI than Kazooie because it's got these wide open areas. Stuff is just kind of tucked away in places that you have to go and really work for to find, which is fine. But it can get confusing because then you have to keep track of where you've been. Find random shit that like, oh, I haven't been somewhere. Oh, I had to do this. Okay, I guess I had to do that then. That's what TUI does, and that's what Yooka-Laylee can sometimes feel like as well.
Well, now that you mention that, from what I remember playing of Yooka-Laylee, it pretty much feels exactly like that. Especially with the fact that...
But a little bit worse.
Especially with the...
Less engaging.
Yeah, because there were things,
The characters feel more generic. At least the characters in TUI are, like, cool, because the sisters are whatever. Jam Jars is okay, I guess. Like, some of those guys are cool, but then, like, in Yooka-Laylee, it's like, what, the pig Sir Hamlet or whatever? And that gross vending machine thing? Like...
and then cameo Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight. But, like,
the one aspect that I just wanted to briefly mention that was a very weird change for TUI was the fact that they made Gruntilda not rhyme.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, every convention, everything you remember that was memorable in Kazooie, they changed for TUI. Yeah, did you want to hear more of Grunty rhyming? You might get it at the beginning, but then later...
You'll get it in the beginning.
The majority of the game, she does not rhyme.
After... I don't know which
because her sisters who talk like Yoda tell her to stop it.
Yeah, and then she literally does it, and then like from that moment onward, no more rhyming, and it's like it's weird. If it was
everything that was conventional that you are familiar with,
because watching that cutscene of them before they take the life force of the king,
yeah,
like
the Jinjo King or whatever,
yeah, and seeing Grunty's dialogue and seeing no rhyme in it at all was very weird. I was like, that's weird. they should have at least done made like a little quip of it, of whatever, of her still rhyming, of that she would still do it, but no, okay. That's what it felt like. It was like, you're not okay.
But
anyways, that's Tui. That's us with Tui in a nutshell.
I still do want to play it. I need to beat it. There's more that you need to see.
I barely fucking started, and like from the I think I even told you this morning when I was like,
okay, to put it in perspective,
I think when I played Tui last night, I feel like I lost brain cells. Because it was like,
to put it into perspective, we unlocked about 2 or so worlds in Kazooie in about 2 or so hours worth of time, or 3 or so hours time. We unlocked 2 whole worlds and beat them to completion in Kazooie. I went back and finished. For some reason, you didn't collect all the fucking honeycomb pieces in Spiral Mountain, so I did that for you, and I did Clanker for you. And in the same amount of time in Tui, we barely did everything in Miam Temple, and we unlocked the other 2 worlds, and just barely got into one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how you know that there's a lot more to do in Tui. But having to adjust yourself to the fact that they didn't just evolve certain things, they kind of broke their own rules that they set in the previous game.
Mm-hmm.
Having to adjust to that takes as much time as being able to just go and do in Banjo-Kazooie.
That's actually, and just thinking about it, yeah, Kazooie feels a lot like Spyro, where
it's straightforward in the first game.
Like, while the levels themselves are open enough to where it's like you can go and explore and stuff like that, like how you're saying, there are things where they leave trails of like, here's this other area in this level you can go and explore, and if you see the landmarks of that, you can be like, okay, I haven't been there yet, or see a trail being like, okay, I haven't been there yet. It's an easy thing to do, and it makes it fun because it's like, okay, well, let me go and do this other thing, and then come back and do that, and get everything.
Because I want to look for comparing Banjo-Kazooie to Tui. I want to look at like those bigger things, like the bigger worlds and the backtracking and interconnected shortcuts. That stuff is fine enough. Those were the biggest changes to make Tui different as a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And taking out all the technical stuff for the comparison's sake to Spyro 2's way of doing much more and adding more and being a bigger sequel to the original game is having these NPCs to talk to, doing the mini games and all that stuff. And then Spyro 3 would later add multiple playable characters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Spyro 1, 2, and 3. The original trilogy, Reignited, I love them. There is still this, it might be because I'm biased, I don't know, the fact that I grew up with Spyro 1 first and played them in sequential order, I come back to Spyro 1 all the time. Usually when I stream Reignited or I play it on my off time, I'll delete a save file and I'll start with Spyro 1. Not because I feel like I have to at that point, because I know all 3 of them to death, but like, I mean, that's why too, like, I'm not playing Nuts and Bolts, and we can't talk much about it in this podcast because
we never experienced it, or we never really played it ourselves.
I mean, I don't know if you care or not. I care enough to the point where I want to beat Tui first, and then I'll move on. I will play Nuts and Bolts. Maybe I'll like it. I don't fucking know. I know it's universally hated for being the black sheep, being the weird one. I know, but I want to give it a shot.
I'll say I'm curious enough to give Nuts and Bolts a shot.
It is weird. I've seen gameplay. I don't know what the full premise is, but like, it is weird. I'll say that much.
It's
obviously
it's a weird one. It's like, well, no, well, it's a Well, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts. While it is not, like how you're saying, while it is universally hated, while it has its criticisms from other people and all that stuff,
it's unanimous criticisms.
Yeah, I am willing to give it a shot.
Yeah, same.
And I'm willing to give it, or at the very least, I'm willing to give it a try, and see how it is, because I'm sure the both of us have, at least, I sure have. I've had my whole thing of like, I don't like this because of all these things, and then I play something of that genre, and it's like, oh, like I always say it, I'm not into FPS games. Or anything like that.
But you love Overwatch.
I like Overwatch. I gave it a shot because I was like, this looks different from any other shooter I've ever seen, where it's the same fucking, you're a soldier using realistic ass weapons and shit.
Yeah.
Or when you're fighting in some real life war in a game or whatever the fuck. Overwatch was different in that aspect because every world was colorful. It was very like
the characters were actually fleshed out.
The characters were
cool.
Each and every character is unique and has something unique about them, whether it's their abilities, their weapon, or whatever.
You're talking to someone who bought Bubsy 3D, Superman 64.
Hell,
like
we willingly got fucking Modern Warfare for PS3 because we were like, let's give it a try. And literally the only thing we ever did in that was the multiplayer.
Because that's what everyone does.
And we played it. We played it. I will admit that I had a little fun at first, but then the more we had just gone, it was like, this is boring.
I mean, same.
And then we never touched it in years. And then I think didn't we give it away or throw it away or something?
We didn't throw it away. I sold it.
Okay, then yeah, it's like that. It was very. And then just seeing all the other Call of Duties come out was very like, okay, it feels like it's the same fucking thing, but they probably changed this or whatnot, but it's still basically the same thing.
I mean, going back though to like our main thing,
but. I just wanted to finish. I wanted to finish of giving Nuts and Bolts a shot. I gave Overwatch a shot. I gave BioShock a shot, and I love both Overwatch and BioShock.
Yeah.
BioShock so far, I still haven't beaten it yet, or I don't even know how far I'm in the first game yet.
You've been chipping away at it. I've been watching it.
I've been playing it, and I've been having fun. I
just bought Metroid Dread.
Exactly. And even then,
I've never played a Metroid game.
The only Metroid game that I ever played was Prime.
But the controls
was the first one that I ever really got into.
Dread's controls were like a little weird. At first, they were a little weird for me, but
I got used to it.
I was frustrated with certain things. But
the moment I knew what to do, I was like, okay, well now I know how to do these things. I just got used to it because I got in the mindset of how I played Prime and how Prime works.
Yeah,
where its control scheme is very weird, but I got used to it.
I mean, no, Dread's controls aren't weird in terms of mapping. It's just in terms of controlling Samus physically. Like, I just had some issues with, like, the wall jumping and stuff like that, but I'm used to how it kind of works now, so it's like, whatever. But, no, with Nuts and Bolts, though, I mean, like, I will give it a shot. I just want to beat Tui first, because I'm choosing to go in sequential order. There aren't very many games in the Banjo series, so... And also, I've said before... we've never played Banjo Pilot or Gran Turismo Revenge. They're for Game Boy. We can buy them. I just haven't seen them or found them or...
I actually saw...
had incentive to get them.
I think I saw Banjo Pilot at Blue Shell one time. I don't see it. I don't see it there, so I'm sure someone must have bought it when I saw it. But
we should look out for it, I guess. I mean, maybe we'll...
I've been curious about how those work, too, because,
I did look up, before, like last night, I did look up some... stuff on Gran Turismo Revenge. It's a weird game that originally was supposed... Okay, so I heard that the concept, it was originally story-wise, supposed to take place as like some kind of alternate pathway after Tui. They changed it, and the final version of how the story is, it's like a midquel. It's in between Kazooie and Tui. But it's very weird, and it doesn't follow what ends up happening in Tui anyway, so I don't even think it's canon. It's bizarre. And Pilot's just a racing game.
Yeah.
So,
because Pilot was supposed to be like... What? It was supposed to be something. It was something...
just a racing game.
Well, it was something before, and then it was made into Banjo Pilot, and I'm forgetting what it was. Yeah, because I saw... What did I see? I think I saw a Digital Gaming.
Was it?
I believe. I think it was canceled... Game Boy games?
Game Boy games? Okay.
I forget the specific video, and I forget what it was, but it was basically like Banjo Pilot was something else before, but because they couldn't make that thing before work, they made it Banjo Pilot.
Okay.
Which I think it was supposed to be
Project Dream. Project Dream Racing. And they turned it into another Banjo game again. And it sounds like, fuck! When am I going to get my time to shine? This motherfucker ended up in a racing game before he even had his own game. It's like Diddy Kong Racing, which I found out that they actually referenced, not by name of course, in Nuts and Bolts at some point. I was reading the TV Tropes fucking categories that Banjo Nuts and Bolts has, and apparently he references being racing before in the past with a genie and a pig. That's Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah. I think Banjo Pilot was going to be like the sequel to Diddy Kong Racing, if I remember right.
Really?
Yeah. Cause or it was either Diddy Kong or maybe like Donkey Kong or something like that. It was supposed to be like DK related.
Barrel Blast. Wait, this wasn't even around at that time.
Okay. I think it was going to be something like that, but then because something happened, they had to switch it and make it Banjo related.
Okay.
I
haven't heard of any of this. This is news to me.
I know. I forget the specifics of it. I probably have to like find the video again or something like that. But yeah, I'm willing to give Nuts and Bolts a shot. I'm not gonna try and fucking get everything in Tooie as much as I would want to, because Kazooie is very much like, once you know where the things are, it's not that hard to go and get them, especially if you replay it multiple times, you know.
Yeah.
But with Tooie, it's very much like, it again, it's like how we were saying, it feels like a chore to remember where to go and do things and all that stuff. So I'm not in the mindset of completing Tooie.
I mean,
I'll play it to the end if I can, if I have the patience to do that. And I'm willing to give Nuts and Bolts a shot.
I mean, hey man, you gotta get to Pterodactyl End so you can see the ejaculating platforms. Gotta at least get there. That's iconic.
Yeah.
There is a cool mechanic that I'm not gonna go too far into that Mumbo does for Banjo that allows you to. It benefits you. That's all I'll say about it. Mm-hmm. It's useful for one world in particular, but then I believe you can't take it outside any of the world. It's exclusive to one particular world, but it's pretty cool, and it makes for some really nice stuff you can do in said world. Mm-hmm. But I kind of want you to see it. But
okay.
There's stuff worth looking at in the rest of Tooie. It's just, again, those little things that we've been talking about this entire time.
Yeah, no.
I wanted this to not be Marc and Vic attack Banjo-Tooie the podcast, but like, that's kind of what it became, and I'm sorry. Yeah. But again, we don't hate the game. It's just this weird change. These changes are weird. That's it. But
because I also feel like Tooie is kind of like one of those ones where it's like, if you've played Kazooie, Tooie feels very much like you just kind of have to get used to what's different, and then
it knows,
you know,
Tooie knows that you. Or rather, it assumes you know the rules to Kazooie because it basically says, we hope you know the rules because we're about to break them. That's kind of, and if you played that game first, then you might not know the rules, so that will just be your introduction to Banjo, which was Miharu's, and then you'll be like, I don't want to play Banjo-Kazooie because you can't fly as Kazooie in that game. Anyway, we're not going to end off just yet because I wanted to ask you, we were playing as Banjo earlier and getting some Smash fights in there for a while, because, I mean, to me, this is like Banjo's proper 20th anniversary comeback versus what Rare actually did for Banjo, which was put a little fucking realistic bear with a shield with a Breagle on it for fucking Sea of Thieves. Thanks, Rare. Hey, Crash got remastered, so did Spyro. But Banjo, give him a statue.
I was gonna say, like, seeing, like, our Smash reaction to Banjo being in the game.
It's a funny story.
It's very...
Because we were...
Here, you finish.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, it was a very visceral feeling of, holy fuck, they brought Banjo in this game.
Yes.
And he hasn't been in anything since, like,
that's why we freaked out. It was cool to see. Did you have more?
No, I was going to say it was, like, amazing because it was, like, holy shit. Because it was actually kind of like Crash or Spyro of, like, when you see something that's, like, referenced or whatever, you would think remaster or something new, you know?
I mean, because... With Smash, and trust me, there will inevitably be a Smash Brothers episode of the podcast.
I can't.
We've talked about this, but
yeah, you have the floor.
Well, I'm gonna say, because it does kind of lean into the latest addition to the cast, Sora. Apparently everyone wanting him, because Sakurai came out and said he actually did win the poll from back in Smash, Wii U, and 3DS, but like because of licensing and other weird bullshit that was going on at the time, we kind of had to go with the next one, which was Bayonetta or whatever. But point being is like willing the fandom and fan base willing something like that to happen like isn't very common. So the fact that devs are trying to make that happen nowadays is like kind of cool to see, because we're in that era of like interacting with said devs online through Twitter, through Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like getting our voices heard and then seeing that direct feedback come in the form of a super insane fucking Smash reveal, because that was what it was with Banjo. Again, we never grew up with Banjo-Kazooie. We didn't have an N64 growing up.
Yeah, and actually, at the time, I hadn't played Banjo.
No,
at all.
I had just beaten the first game.
Yeah,
only.
Yeah, because again, I saw you play, and I had already really seen all of Kazooie at the time. I had never had the control in my hands playing it myself at that. At that time.
So like.
But still, the feeling of seeing him return after so long was very like, holy shit.
Knowing that story of like watching the JonTron videos or whatever, of like knowing from fans of Banjo, Nintendo YouTubers online who do have stories with Banjo or whatever the case is, going, he was a character. I mean, it's like Crash or Spyro. Having a platformer character who was huge in the 90s, have a couple hits, kind of just fall off the face of the earth for a while. When will he return? I don't know. For Crash, it was his 20th. For Spyro, it was his 20th. Fucking E3 2019 comes around, and then Banjo's in Smash Brothers. Like, it was like the last thing he was in was probably not Nuts and Bolts. I think he did make his cameo in that Sonic Sega racing game, because that was their Nuts and Bolts.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was their Nuts and Bolts design.
That was what game was that?
So they did cameo.
I think it was Transformed.
Yeah, but they cameoed like one at a time, and that was like about it.
Mm.
So point being is that when characters like that fall into, I mean, same thing with like Dante and Devil May Cry. Like the last thing before DMC 5 was DMC Devil May Cry, the reboot. So people said, okay, shitty reboot. Okay, that's the version of him that ends up in PlayStation All-Stars. So is that just all we're gonna get now? He's just done. It's done. DMC's dead. And then boom, DMC 5 happens, and people fucking lose their shit.
Mm-hmm.
So Banjo has a game no one liked, and that same design of them make it into another game, and then what? That's it. And then bam, Smash happened, and we were like, what the fuck? Like, people have been wanting Banjo since Melee, and then people were thinking that the whole Microsoft thing was going to make it impossible.
Yeah. And actually, I believe Banjo was considered during Melee, but because of time constraints.
That's what I'm saying.
Because of all this other stuff.
No, but it was also because that was the GameCube era, and the GameCube era is when Banjo 3 was going to happen, but then the Microsoft acquisition happened too.
Mm-hmm.
So that all just spiraled real fast.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like really timing.
Yeah,
that just made it
timing
not happen.
Fucked it up as early as back then, but that's when it was going to happen.
Because then you think about it, and it's like, well, would that have technically been would Melee have technically been the first Smash game to introduce third parties, or if they could still make it happen or not?
Was Rare a third party for? I guess they were a third party for Nintendo. I guess everyone was third party for Nintendo. So I'm trying to think about it, like how PlayStation has like its first party people, like Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Sucker Punch, Santa Monica.
I was trying to remember where.
So I don't know. I don't know if Nintendo has people like that too. Like they acquired ND Cube and I think they have ND Cube. I think they have ND Cube because they're the ones that do Mario Party. They have Next Level Games, stuff like that. So I don't think Rare was that for them, but they had obviously a fucking amazing relationship until Microsoft was like, yoink. So
yoink, steal.
I don't know, but like, I guess the only question I have for what we can talk about for a little bit longer before we end off is just do you see anything else happening beyond? Because we have the dumb fucking $50 ass online bullshit going on in like November or whatever, and then Banjo is going, Kazooie anyway, not Tooie as far as we're aware, is going to be part of that, so you can play Banjo on the Switch soon.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, I think it's the first time in a long time since Tooie that, or at the very least with the Game Boy games and all that,
that Banjo's back on a Nintendo console.
Yeah,
like a game of Banjo's is back on a Nintendo console.
Because then other than that, he's just been in like the rare stuff and been in other things of like Microsoft and all that.
Yeah, but do you think that because it seems like Nintendo, in terms of Banjo specifically, because Banjo is just that popular in terms of all of Rare's stuff that they still own. I mean, not that they don't own Banjo, because they do. It's just that Banjo stuff has to first and foremost, for the most part, come out on Xbox. It's just that Microsoft and Nintendo are obviously working so hard to make sure that we can see Banjo kind of come back, inch back a little bit to Switch.
Especially with the fact that apparently that somehow Microsoft and Nintendo have some relationship with each other now. Like there's a thing going on between those because they're
in bed with each other.
Because there was the whole Doom thing where Doom was on the Switch and stuff like that, and like they remastered
Doom, whatever.
I think they remastered, or it was they brought back the older Dooms, and then there was the new one, Eternal.
Yeah.
And then there's Doom Guy, Doom Slayer.
Yeah, as a Mii Fighter
costume. Mii Fighter costume in Smash. And then all that stuff. So there's something there, and I would honestly say, because I also said this last night.
My question, I don't know, I think I asked the question, do you see something happening, like a remaster, a new game for Banjo that can happen? It'll happen on Xbox, very most likely, but maybe it can also come to Switch.
I don't know about the possibility. I would definitely see it happen. I could see it happen. It would be a really amazing thing to happen, because I was saying like I could see an insane reignited like remaster
like
for Banjo
remaster,
where it's like the original game's upscaled and it looks better and stuff like that. Maybe
redone from the ground up.
Well, yeah, that's but
upscale is going to be what it's going to be on the online bullshit.
But you know what I mean.
I know what you
mean. It looks better. Maybe it's controlled better if it's like if the controls are redone or whatever.
Because the controls weren't even the controls.
I don't know why you want to redo the controls, especially if they felt
you can make them feel even better.
Yeah,
Spyro felt good at control.
Like yeah,
and then Reunited made it feel even faster and a little bit better.
Yeah, but that's what I say. So it's like in terms of what could potentially be next for Banjo, should they decide to continue with that, I could see like how they've been doing with Crash and Spyro. I could see a remaster or remaster plus, whatever they want to call it, and then like if it receives well, a new game. Banjo like an actual Banjo 3 or something.
Banjo in 4K, dude.
Like I could see that potentially happening, but in terms of the probability and all that, I don't know. I don't know if it could. I don't know if it will be. If it could come into fruition.
Because I thought
I could see that happen.
I don't know if it's. I still don't know because I didn't go back and check before we recorded this. If I said it in the reaction, in the Banjo for Smash reaction, but like, I was in the moment. I'm like, okay, well, with this announcement, like, does this mean that in the next announcement after we get off of Smash Brothers, we'll see something for Banjo? Like, did they already make an agreement?
All I remember you saying was. Because it was when because
the last announcement of the showcase was Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, which was, oh my god, but
still cool. I was just hoping that maybe Banjo would actually be coming back in more ways than just Smash.
I remember you were just like, I remember you asked the question of like remaster, especially when it showed like the logo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of what I was thinking too in the moment. I was like, if they announced a remaster or something immediately after this, I'll be fucking done.
It would have been cool.
It would have been amazing.
It's accessible to way more people, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean,
and especially with how
same way Crash and Spyro did it.
Because I've also noticed too on how because Crash was very Crash and Spyro were multi-platform.
Yeah.
With their remasters and stuff like that.
But Insane also was a timed exclusive on PlayStation just to pay homage to the roots of the original trilogy. It was 2018, right before Spyro actually came out. I think it was already announced, but before Reunited came out, Insane went multi-platform. Because we first found that out. It was rumored that it would be timed. We didn't know if it was or not. We thought it was going to be exclusive. We thought Insane would be exclusive to PS4, and then a Nintendo Direct came out, and it was announced there first that Insane was going to be coming to Switch, and then we were like, okay, that must also mean Xbox One.
Yeah, and then even on their Twitter, they had a little trailer to show that it's
the multi-platform trailer. Yeah.
I would see Banjo if it was a remaster of it. I would see it it would be on Xbox, but I could also see it on Switch because they've got Kazooie on there. It's it feels like it's an open door of opportunity to be.
That's what I'm thinking.
If there's something new or whatever, I could see it be a multi-platform. If not an exclusive to Xbox, then I could see it being on other consoles and stuff like that.
I mean, well, it's very specific. Banjo has never been on PlayStation, so.
Well, I don't know about PlayStation.
It would just be those two.
I mean, but you know what I mean, though. I would
PC?
see it.
Well, Microsoft, so PC probably. But
PC port of it. I mean, I guess.
I mean, Insane and Reunited have it too. So,
yeah.
but
I mean, I could see it on another console. Is the thing, as I'm saying,
Stadia.
Whether it's not
Stadia.
Ew, no.
Ouya. Buy Banjo-Kazooie Duology Remaster on the Ouya.
Yeah, I see it as as a multi-platform. If not for all consoles, then I could just see it as for Xbox
and Switch, and probably PC. Because Microsoft could totally do that.
Yeah, they probably would.
But I do hope that Banjo and Kazooie do get some kind of justice, a true, real comeback with some type of game, not just an emulated port through online means on the Switch. It's still cool that you can play Banjo on Switch. I'm not saying that it's just the way they're doing it. It's Nintendo's been really trying to lean into emulation, and it's just weird because, again, Mario 3D All-Stars or whatever isn't a remastered trilogy collection, which I was hoping it would be. It's just an emulated port of 64 Sunshine and Galaxy.
Yeah, and I've learned because I've seen it in stores that there's still physical copies of it.
Okay, well, whatever.
I thought it was
I've got all three of them on the consoles that they came out on, I don't need it.
I thought it was a time thing of okay, so after this certain amount of time, any and all copies of it would just be gone, and what the people that have it, but apparently you can still get physical copies of it. Yeah. I guess it was just timed for it digitally or whatever.
That's what I thought it was, but
it was. But I thought it was timed also for physical copies.
Oh, okay.
But I guess it was whatever. It's whatever, because if you have the originals, just play the originals.
I think that's about it. Again, we're not even we're not the biggest Banjo fans. That's when I wish we could get Josh Jepson on or something, or John even, we could, but it would be cool because they would have stories, and they would, from the perspective of someone who grew up with it in vein of how we grew up with Crash and Spyro, we could just talk everyone's ear off like we have about Crash and Spyro for hours and hours and hours. I would love to talk with a longtime Banjo fan on something like that. I have met Josh Jepson in person at E3, and he was super awesome to kind of hang out with for a little tiny bit. But I would love to pick someone's brain who knows Banjo way more than we do.
Because then you also got the two sides of someone who's barely gotten into it, and then someone who's been with it for the long haul,
who knows enough to critique it, and someone who can critique anything, any aspect of Banjo, be it the Game Boy games, nuts and bolts, whatever else.
I know I should have mentioned it earlier in the recording, but I'll say it now. While you had your stuff that you grew up with, for me, it was just various things that I grew up with. like I too have my bias stuff, but when in terms of stuff like Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Banjo, or whatever other people grew up with, I am very much like in the middle, where I have my critiques of something, but at the same time, I don't want the critiques to be like, like I don't want it to be one-sided.
Yeah.
Like, I want to at least be open about it enough to where it's like, I recognize that this thing has this in it. I don't want it to ruin the experience just because it does this one thing different.
Well, I mean, hell, it changes its whole tone. You're also listening to people who didn't grow up with Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, but we ended up getting into those later. And Jak specifically changes its tone completely, but I still gave 2 a chance, and I haven't beaten it yet. I haven't played it since we last streamed it, or rather, since I last played it on my off time. We never streamed it on the channel on Destination Mark. I would probably like to at some point in the future, but I don't know yet. This has nothing to do with Banjo anymore.
I know, but I'm saying, like, it leans into what I was saying with me
about
being
trying stuff.
Yeah, about trying this stuff and being
childhood.
biased. Because again, I don't have the Banjo experience. I don't have the fucking. I'm not like, oh my god, I there's this and this and this that happened in my life with Banjo. I don't have that.
Well, same
but
with me.
I know, but I'm saying, like, for someone who's in the middle between
I
things.
take my shirt off. Just don't worry about it. It's getting a little hot in here.
But it's like, I don't like. It's like for someone like me who's not one or the other. I'm in the middle. It's like it's a very interesting thing to hear someone with experience and someone who's barely getting into it, because it's like, there's the opinions and there's all of like the experience stuff of like, oh, I like this because of this, or this could have been changed because of whatever.
I'll give you some Banjo experience. Tune in next time, and we'll talk about nuts and bolts, and we'll praise the fuck out of it, and screw everyone who doesn't like it. Ugh.